The store was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator aisles and the soft clinking of coins trembling in a woman's hand. A young mother, maybe in her late 20s, stood at the counter, clutching a small carton of milk as her daughter watched from behind her skirt, eyes wide, unaware of the weight of what was happening. The cashier looked impatient. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. It's $2.30. You're short," the mother's lips quivered. She reached into her worn-out purse again, her fingers searching, desperate, but all she pulled out were a few crumpled coins. Not enough. Her daughter whispered, "Mommy, it's okay. I'm not that thirsty." That broke her. She forced a smile, her voice shaking. "No, sweetheart, you need it for school." But the silence around her was heavy, judgmental. People in line began whispering, some with pity, others with annoyance. And then, from behind, a man's voice sliced through the air. Calm, confident, and cold. "Just cancel the milk if she can't pay. Some of us have places to be." The mother turned slightly, just enough to glimpse him. A man in a tailored suit, watch glinting under the fluorescent light. The kind of man who had never worried about $1 in his life. His name was Ethan Cole, billionaire investor, known for his charity dinners and his perfect smile in magazines. But here, in this moment, there was no kindness, only quiet superiority. Her eyes met his for half a second, a mix of shame and defiance. Then slowly, she placed the milk on the counter and whispered, "I'm sorry," before taking her daughter's hand and walking out. The bell above the door chimed softly as she left, and for a brief second, the man's confidence faltered. He looked at that small carton of milk, sitting abandoned on the counter, and for reasons he couldn't explain, his chest tightened, but pride made him turn away. Outside, the mother knelt beside her daughter on the sidewalk, pulling her close. The morning wind carried their silence, one filled with love, the other with quiet defeat. Inside, the billionaire glanced out the glass door, and for the first time in years, something in his perfect polished world didn't feel right. He didn't know it yet, but this moment, this tiny carton of milk, would change his life forever. The next morning, the same grocery store buzzed with the dull rhythm of everyday life, carts rolling, scanners beeping, and footsteps echoing on polished tiles. Ethan Cole stood near the counter again, surrounded by his 2 bodyguards. He wasn't there to shop. He was there to forget. But life doesn't let you forget the things that matter, because just as he reached for his coffee, he saw her again. The same woman. The same child. She was standing at the far end of the store, speaking softly to the manager, apologizing for returning the same carton of milk she had bought back after borrowing money from her neighbor. Her voice trembled. "I didn't realize the date was near expiry. I just need a fresh one for my daughter, please." The manager's tone was sharp, cutting. "Ma'am, store policy doesn't allow refunds on opened items. You should have known that." People nearby began to stare. The little girl hid behind her mother's skirt again, eyes glistening with confusion. The mother's shoulders sank, her voice breaking. "Please, I'm not asking for money back. Just a new carton. My daughter's been sick." The manager folded his arms. Rules are rules, and Ethan watched. Every word stung his conscience, though he didn't know why. He told himself it wasn't his business. He told himself he had meetings, deals, things that mattered. But then, the manager's tone grew cruel. "You people always come with excuses," he said under his breath. "Can't afford it? Then don't buy it." That was when the little girl whispered something, barely audible but sharp enough to pierce through the air. "My mom says kindness doesn't cost anything." The room froze. The manager's smirk faded, and Ethan's chest tightened again, this time stronger. The woman knelt, trying to hush her daughter, her voice trembling. "It's okay, baby. Let's go." She picked up the old milk and turned away. But something inside Ethan cracked. Something deep, old, and buried. He remembered his own mother's hands, rough from cleaning offices, returning half-used supplies to save a few dollars. And suddenly, that store, with all its polished aisles and judgmental whispers, felt suffocating. He took a step forward, then another, until his voice cut through the silence. Wait. The mother stopped. Everyone turned. Ethan's gaze was steady now, softer, but firm. How much is the milk? The manager blinked. Sir, I said how much? $2.30. Ethan took out his wallet and placed a $100 bill on the counter. Keep the change, he said quietly. And maybe next time try treating people with a little decency, the manager stammered. The woman stood frozen, unsure whether to thank him or run. Ethan turned to her, eyes meeting for the first time without pride. Take it, he said softly. For your daughter. But before she could speak, he added quietly, as if speaking to himself. I should have done this yesterday. The woman's eyes filled with tears, not of gratitude, but of pain. Because kindness delayed still carries the weight of cruelty remembered. She nodded once, holding her daughter close, and walked out again. This time, Ethan didn't look away. He watched her leave, the small figure of a woman carrying milk and dignity, and as the door closed behind her, something inside him whispered, This isn't over. The apartment was small. One flickering bulb, a second-hand fan turning slow circles, and a little girl sleeping on a narrow bed, her hand curled around a worn-out stuffed bunny. Maya sat by the window, staring at the city lights outside, 1,000 homes shining brighter than hers. The milk sat untouched on the counter. She'd been too drained to heat it. Her reflection in the glass looked older than her years. Tired eyes, a faint bruise on her wrist from carrying boxes all day at the diner. She whispered to herself, Tomorrow will be better. It has to be, but the words felt hollow. Bills lay scattered on the table, rent, medicine, overdue notices. She picked up a photograph of a man in a uniform, her late husband. Killed in an accident 3 years ago. She traced his smile with trembling fingers and sighed. Ethan, you'd laugh if you saw me crying over milk. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, soft at first, then closer. Rain tapped against the window, steady and rhythmic, like time reminding her she had none to waste. She moved quietly to the kitchen and poured the milk into a small pot, letting the smell fill the air. When she turned, her daughter Lily was awake, rubbing her eyes. Mommy? Yes, baby? Did the mean man say sorry today? Maya paused. The question hit like a knife. She knelt beside her daughter and brushed her hair back. No, sweetheart. But that's okay. Some people don't know what sorry means until life teaches them. Lily frowned. Will life teach him soon? A faint smile touched Maya's lips. It always does. They shared the milk together, 1 cup between 2 hearts. And in that quiet moment, there was peace and fragile. Fleeting, but real, across the city, in a high-rise penthouse, Ethan Cole sat in front of a grand window, glass walls overlooking a skyline built on his success. But tonight, he didn't feel victorious. He poured himself a drink, but it didn't go down easy. He could still hear the little girl's voice. My mom says kindness doesn't cost anything. And that one line, that innocent truth, burned more than any whiskey could soothe. He walked toward his office. On his desk sat a photo, a younger Ethan with his mother, both smiling in a tiny kitchen not so different from Maya's. She had worked double shifts just so he could go to college. And suddenly, the irony stung. He had become the kind of man his mother used to warn him about. He sat down, elbows on his knees, eyes heavy. Where did I lose her? He whispered. The man who once had nothing now had everything, except the part of himself that cared. And that night, something shifted inside him. A thought, a spark, a restless guilt that wouldn't sleep. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd find her. Not out of pity, but to understand why that moment in the grocery store felt like a mirror he could no longer look away from. The morning was pale and cold. Maya tied her apron tighter, tucking a few stray strands of hair behind her ear. The diner smelled of coffee, fried eggs, and exhaustion. She moved from table to table, polite smile, quiet voice, the kind of grace you earn only when life's been unkind. Lily's school lunch sat in a paper bag on the counter, waiting for her break. Then the door opened. A bell rang, soft, harmless, But the air changed. In walked Ethan Cole, the same man from the store. Tailored coat, polished shoes, the kind of presence that made everyone look twice. Maya froze mid-step. Her hand tightened around the coffee pot. For a moment, her heart stopped, not out of fear but disbelief. He saw her too. Their eyes met. A flicker of recognition, a sting of guilt. He took a booth by the window, alone. Didn't order right away, just sat there, watching her move through the aisles, his jaw set, regret flickering behind his calm. When she finally approached his table, her voice was steady but cold. "What can I get for you, sir?" He hesitated. Then quietly, "Just coffee, black." The silence between them stretched thin. Steam rose from the cup as she poured, hands trembling slightly. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. Maya didn't look at him. "You don't owe me anything, sir." Her tone was polite, distant, but there was hurt behind the words, the kind that lingers. He nodded, eyes on his hands. "I was wrong yesterday. About everything." Still, she didn't respond. "Do you always work this hard?" he asked gently, trying to bridge something. She glanced at him. "I don't have the luxury not to." Then turned and walked away. For a while, he just sat there, watching her serve customers, smile at strangers, carry plates twice her weight. Every gesture reminded him of his mother, strong, unseen, unstoppable. When the rush slowed down, he slipped something under his cup, a business card, and beside it, a folded note. He paid, nodded toward her one last time, and left. Maya didn't notice until she cleared the table. The note was short, written in firm, careful handwriting. "People like you built the world I live in. I forgot that somewhere along the way. I'd like to talk, if you'll let me." Her eyes hovered over the name embossed on the card. Ethan Cole, CEO, Cole Industries. Her breath caught. The name was everywhere. Billboards, news, luxury brands. She folded the note, tucked it into her apron pocket, and whispered under her breath, "Why would a man like that need to talk to someone like me?" But deep down, something stirred. Curiosity, caution, hope. And when Lily came running after school, holding her mother's hand as they walked home under the fading sun, Maya's mind wasn't on the bills for once. It was on that note, burning like a small light in her pocket. The city hummed quietly beneath a golden dusk. Maya sat on her couch, the same old couch with its worn-out cushions, staring at the note in her hand for what? Felt like the 100th time. She'd reread those words so many times that she could almost hear his voice saying them. But in her world, rich men didn't reach out to women like her. Still, something about his tone at the diner, soft, almost sincere, made her want to believe. The next morning, she decided. One clean dress, hair tied neatly, and a nervous heart pounding beneath her ribs, she took the subway across town, from the rusted edges of her neighborhood to the glass and steel skyline she'd only ever seen from afar. Cole Industries towered above the clouds like a monument to power. Guards, cameras, polished marble floors, everything screamed untouchable wealth. When she stepped inside, the receptionist blinked at her name. Then, with polite surprise, said, "He's expecting you." Maya followed the echo of her own footsteps down a long hallway until she reached his office. Walls of glass, sunlight flooding in, the city sprawling below like a toy model. Ethan turned from the window when she entered. No suit jacket this time. Just a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, humility creeping into his posture. "Maya," he said with a small nod. She stood tall, clutching her purse. "You asked me to come, why?" He gestured to the seat across from his desk. "Because I realized something after that day. I saw you return milk you needed, for your daughter, just because you refused to take charity. That kind of pride." It shook me. Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed guarded. "Pride doesn't feed a child, Mr. Cole, but it's all I've got." He nodded slowly. "That's exactly why I wanted to talk. I run a foundation for working mothers. I want you to manage it." She froze. "Manage it, me?" Her laugh was short, almost bitter. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said quietly. You're honest. You work hard. You don't break when life tries to bend you. The words hit her harder than she expected. No one had ever said that to her before, but not like that. But then her expression changed. What if this is pity? She asked, meeting his gaze. What if you're just trying to make yourself feel better? He paused, caught off guard. Her tone had shifted. Steady, calm, unafraid. Because if that's what this is, then keep your offer, she continued. My life might be small, but at least it's mine. I don't need saving, Mr. Cole. The silence that followed was thick. Even the city noise seemed to vanish behind the glass. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and for the first time saw a woman who wasn't broken, but unbreakable. Slowly, he nodded. Maybe I do need saving, he murmured. Her eyes flickered, confused but curious. That single line shifted the balance between them completely. The billionaire who once looked down at her now sat humbled in his own office, searching for words that wouldn't sound empty. For the first time, Maya wasn't the one standing small. She stood, thanked him politely, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned slightly and said, If you really want to make a difference, don't start with me. Start with the people you don't see. And with that, she walked out, her footsteps echoing stronger than they ever had before. Behind her, Ethan Cole sat in silence, her words replaying like a quiet storm in his mind. That night, rain fell hard against the city windows, heavy, relentless, like the world itself needed to cry. Ethan sat in his office long after everyone had gone home. The lights of the skyline blurred through the glass, his reflection looking back at him, a man who had everything and yet felt empty for the first time. Maya's words haunted him. Don't start with me. Start with the people you don't see. He couldn't shake it. For years he'd built companies, bought buildings, won awards, but somehow, in all that success, he'd stopped seeing people. He opened a drawer and pulled out an old photograph. His mother, years ago, holding his hand outside a small grocery store. They'd been poor once too. He remembered her voice, soft but firm. Never forget, Ethan, money is loud. Kindness whispers. And for the first time, he realized how far he'd drifted from that whisper. The next morning, he made a decision. Meanwhile, across the city, Maya woke up to the sound of her daughter, Lily, coughing. She had no medicine left, no milk, and just $6 in her purse. Her heart sank, but she kept smiling for Lily. She wrapped her scarf tight, kissed her little girl's forehead, and whispered, Mommy's got this, okay? Always. She walked back to the same grocery store from that awful day, the same flickering lights, the same cashier who once stared while she returned milk in shame. Only this time, something was different. Outside the store, a large black car pulled up quietly. A man in a raincoat stepped out, and even before he looked up, Maya recognized him. Ethan Cole. He walked toward her, umbrella in hand, and said nothing for a moment, just looked at her with a softness she hadn't seen before. Maya, he began quietly. You were right. I didn't see. I didn't listen. Her brows furrowed. Unsure where this was going, he nodded toward the store. Come inside with me. The automatic doors slid open. Customers turned. The same cashier froze. And there, on the counter, stood a new sign, bold and unexpected. Community Milk Fund, free essentials for single parents. Sponsored by Cole Foundation. Maya blinked, unable to speak. Ethan turned to her gently. You inspired this. It's yours to run, if you'll take it. Tears welled in her eyes, but she shook her head slightly. Why me? Because, he said softly, you reminded me that money means nothing if it can't ease someone's hunger or their heart. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of rain against glass, the faint hum of the store lights. Then, out of nowhere, little Lily, who had been standing quietly by Maya's side, tugged Ethan's coat. He looked down. She smiled, holding a small carton of milk. And in a voice soft but clear, she said, Thank you for helping my mommy. It was such a simple sentence, but it cracked something open inside him. Ethan's throat tightened. His eyes glistened. He crouched down to meet her gaze and whispered, "No, sweetheart. Thank you for reminding me what really matters." The moment froze in time. The powerful man kneeled before a child, and the woman he once pitied now stood as his teacher. The cashier looked on silently, the same one who'd once judged her. And maybe for the first time, he too understood that dignity is richer than gold. The rain outside softened, turning to a quiet drizzle. Light filtered through the windows like forgiveness, and as Maya wiped her tears, Ethan said the words that completed his transformation. "I can't change the world, Maya. But maybe I can start with one milk carton at a time." Her smile trembled. It wasn't about charity anymore. It was about humanity. Weeks passed, and what began as one small act of conscience turned into something much bigger. The Community Milk Fund became a movement. Every grocery store owned by Ethan Cole's company now had a section, shelves labeled, "Take what you need, no questions asked." But it wasn't just about milk anymore. There were baby supplies, bread, medicine vouchers, and more than anything, dignity. Because no one had to ask, no one had to beg, and yet, despite the buzz in the media, Ethan didn't show up for cameras or interviews. He didn't want applause. He wanted to understand. That's why one rainy afternoon he walked into the small neighborhood where Maya lived. No limousine this time, no suit. Just a man, carrying a box of donated groceries with his own hands. The street kids stared, confused. An old woman called out, "You lost, sir?" He smiled. "No, ma'am. Just trying to find my way." When he reached Maya's apartment, the door was open. He saw her helping Lily with homework at the kitchen table, the same kitchen where once there had been nothing but worry. Now there was laughter, color, warmth. She looked up, surprised. "Mr. Cole?" He shook his head. "Ethan, please," she smiled. "You didn't have to come all this way." He placed the box down gently. "Yes, I did." For a moment, silence hung between them, not awkward but meaningful. The kind of silence that says we've both changed. Ethan looked around the modest apartment. The cracked wall, the small heater struggling in the corner, the drawings on the fridge. And he said quietly, "I used to think success was measured by what I owned. Now I think it's measured by what I can give. And still feel full." Maya nodded. "You're learning fast," he chuckled softly. "You're a good teacher." Then Lily ran up, waving a crayon drawing. It showed 3 figures, her mom, and a man holding a milk carton, smiling under a bright sun. "I drew us," she said proudly. Ethan stared at the paper. Something in his chest tightened. He'd been drawn into a picture, not of business or wealth, but belonging. He knelt beside her, voice trembling. "Thank you, Lily. That's the best gift I've ever been given." Maya watched him, eyes soft. "You really mean that, don't you?" "I do," he whispered. "You and your daughter reminded me that compassion isn't a project. It's a promise." From that day forward, Ethan began spending his weekends at the community centers he funded. He helped stack shelves, serve food, read stories to children, and people began to see a different kind of millionaire, one who showed up. Maya, on the other hand, didn't just accept a job. She built a system, helping other single parents find stability, employment, and hope. Under her leadership, the Cole Foundation stopped being a nameplate on a building and became a beating heart for the city. But perhaps the biggest change wasn't visible in headlines or bank statements. It was in Ethan himself. His tone was gentler. His eyes lingered longer when people spoke. And when he smiled, it wasn't practiced, it was human. Because for the first time, he wasn't leading with power. He was following with purpose. Months passed. Seasons changed, but the story of a single carton of milk never faded. It became something whispered between neighbors, shared on social media, and remembered in quiet prayers. At the city's annual charity event, Maya stood on stage, not as a guest, but as the keynote speaker. She looked out at a crowd that once would have terrified her, CEOs, investors, journalists, and families. And sitting in the front row, dressed simply in a gray sweater, was Ethan Cole, smiling like a proud friend, not a millionaire. Maya took a deep breath and began, "Months ago, I couldn't even afford milk for my daughter. I thought that made me a failure. But now I realize poverty doesn't measure a person's worth, compassion does. Because one man looked beyond a mistake and chose to see me, today hundreds of parents no longer have to choose between shame and survival." The hall was silent, not because the crowd was unmoved, but because everyone felt the same quiet sting of truth. That invisible wall between privilege and struggle had cracked, at least for a moment. After the applause faded, Maya stepped down from the stage. Ethan met her halfway. "Your words, they hit harder than any business deal I've ever made," he said softly. She smiled, because they came from the heart, not the market. They stood side by side as reporters took photos, but for once, neither of them posed. They just stood, two people forever changed by a single act of kindness that began in a grocery store aisle. Later that night, Ethan drove through the city alone. The streets glowed under the orange haze of streetlights. He passed a small shop, the same one where he'd first seen Maya and Lily. Now, a new sign hung by the door. "Community Corner, free essentials for families in need." He smiled faintly, whispering to himself, "Some lessons can't be bought, only lived." A faint hum of music filled the car as he drove away, the kind that feels like both an ending and a beginning. Because maybe that's what life really is. Not about what we keep, but what we give back. And somewhere in that same small apartment, Lily was fast asleep, hugging her milk carton drawing close to her chest. Maya tucked her in and looked out of the window, at a city that once felt cruel, but now seemed just a little more kind. Her voice, soft but certain, filled the quiet room. Maybe kindness really does echo. You just have to start it. And as the screen would fade to black, the narrator's voice would return, steady, gentle, full of warmth. If this story moved you, share it, because truth always finds a way.